Clash of Clans podcast, OG, episode 38. Hey there, podcast listeners. Before we get into this episode, I just want to let you know I did have a little bit of a tech sound issue right at the start of the episode. However, the good news is it only lasts for about a minute. So for the first minute and a half, you're going to hear me, Scotty827, as if I was a robot. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Scotty827, along with my co-host, or your other host, I should say, Tipdawg20.
Tipdawg20. You know, we're getting closer and closer to our age in these episodes. What are we going to do when we pass our age?
Oh, it's like out of a future, right?
Start getting arthritis.
Yeah. Yeah, the episodes are breaking down. We'll age like a fine wine. That's what I think.
I agree. Hopefully. An expensive fine wine. Or maybe I'm a cheap fine wine. What are you?
Yeah.
If you could be any wine.
I'm an aged box of Peter Bela. You're a cheap box wine.
I'm the Harris Teeter off-brand.
Oh, you probably come in a bottle, don't you?
$2 Chuck. That's me. $2 tip.
It's not wine if it doesn't come out of a plastic bag. I'm sorry.
That's true.
Oh, well, welcome back, Tip. It's been 2 weeks since we really caught up, and it feels like forever, to be honest, since I talked to you. These weeks are going fast. I know you've been super busy. How have you been?
Yep. Good. We talked a little bit beforehand how Helene had hit North Carolina pretty hard, and how I was involved with a lot of that with my job and what I do traveling. And it's been a lot. Like, the people there were hit really, really hard, and it was kind of unexpected. Like, I don't think that people realized that their homes, like whole homes, would be washed away, and they're just now getting water back. So it's been like 4 weeks, 3 weeks,
yeah, can you imagine?
Since hurricane hit. They've had no water. A lot of places are just getting electricity back after 3 or 4 weeks. No internet. Like, I have interpreter friends who they had no access to the internet, and they had no electric. So they had to take their phones out to their cars and plug it into the cigarette lighter, so that way they could actually have power for their phones, so they would have some connection to the outside world. So, I mean, I was just talking to somebody about it the other day. Like, it's just been a surreal experience how awful it was. I mean, I don't want to compare it to Hurricane Katrina, because Hurricane Katrina was just awful, right? But this has definitely rivaled it in not quite as bad a way, I don't think, but it's impacted us in a pretty big way. Thankfully, I was out of the path of the hurricane, and so I'm just, in the helping with the after effects, but still lots of people who are recovering from that mentally, emotionally, physically. Like, it's just been a lot. So yeah, thank you for asking.
And just even like with just getting back on track, and what the next few months will look like for everybody, I think it's wild. So I know my thoughts are with everybody, and down in Florida too, and
Florida was hit hard as well,
and everywhere. Just wow. And so hopefully all those clashers out there are hanging in and can get back to their game.
Yeah, I imagine if there's anybody located in the Asheville area, they just didn't log on for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
maybe they've been kicked from their clans at this point. I don't know. Like, oh well, Joe Blow 127 hasn't logged in. We're kicking him from the clan.
Yeah, I wonder about that a lot when these disasters hit. Like, because we don't really necessarily say where everybody's from in the clan. I know where some people are from if they've said it, but you kind of get worried, like something hits and then you haven't heard from somebody, and then you don't know,
right.
Did they become inactive, or were they like swim and just decided to go
just
out in the hurricane?
Just go for a swim out in the ocean while a hurricane. 7th worst in history. Still can't get over that.
Pina colada in his hand, just living the life.
Chilling.
So funny. Well, I'm glad that you're hanging in there, and it's good to catch up and see where you're at with everything. And I'm gonna have to ask you about this attack that you're doing.
Yeah, it's been fun. It was actually one that GCBC shared in the Attack Air channel. So on Discord, GCBC has set up different channels for different strategies for attacks. He has a ground channel, an air channel. I think there's a strategic rushing channel. I can't remember off the top of my head all, but there's several channels.
In a
And
questions, smashins.
right, so he'll go through and he'll post videos that are useful. So maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, he posted a video, and I was like, "Oh, like that. That's really interesting." And like with any attack, whenever you learn it for the first time, like you suck at it. And so I remember doing this. It's a
Oh,
warden charge, which actually makes me think that you would actually be really good at this attack. Like
I,
you've watched a little bit. Like,
I,
what do you think of it? Do you think that that might be something that you could do?
well, I have to be honest. It kind of threw me off my game when I saw your attack because I thought, look at that warden go. And,
Yes.
and so what the first one of the first moves I guess is like the warden walk, but then you rage the warden
Mm-hmm.
and the healers, or I can't remember, the very specific like what your objectives are. I'm just kind of like trying to take it in. But uh I saw that and I was like, he can do more work. And then I
Mm.
started playing with that, just testing out like that raged warden, and it kind of like threw my whole balance off. Which like I just started tweaking my entire army, and then I was like timing was being a little weird then, because I'm getting used to like, a little bit more rage on a warden, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, um just my whole rhythm got kind of thrown off.
Yep. Yep.
Um
And you have to think of the attack differently. And it took me a week or so before I really started, before the pieces started falling into place. So the warden charge is the most important part of the attack, and you have to keep the warden alive. And then actually Tyler came in and did a similar attack. Shout out to Tyler, who's been dropping off Capital Gold in House of L.
Keeping Oh man.
And you bring the warden in on one side. Typically, you'll try to bring the flame flinger in on another corner. Then you'll bring your king and your queen in on another corner, typically let off with an ice golem, maybe a few super wall breakers, and then you bring in the royal champion paired with Scotty's favorite royal champion equipment, the rocket spear, and then
Yeah.
you got to dig it out of the trash. But that the shield,
Shield.
the seeking shield, you immediately trigger the RC ability. The RC will take out 4, 5, or 6 defenses, bam, 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 right there. And then they all kind of meet in the middle. And I've had several attacks. If it goes well, you don't even need the crux of your army because your
Yeah.
heroes and the flame
It's
flinger and the supporting
thick.
troops take it all out. So it's
It's
ridiculous.
the thing about it, and watching this attack it's almost like an optical illusion to me
Mm-hmm.
because you go in with so few things and take out a huge part of the base, and then it's like, oh, here's my troops
Yeah.
to go in. And I was just, it kind of took me out of it, right? Like, wow, okay, you can do some really cool different things. And it made me realize, like, wow, I'm stuck in the psychology of keep your heroes alive and all these like habits that I've had forever. But that really excites me. Um,
Yeah, and the whole goal is to keep your warden alive. Like your king can die, your queen can die. That doesn't mean that you might try to keep them alive in some situations, but basically all the attention has to be on the warden, and then you just release your king and your queen in an optimum spot, funnel them in. The army comp includes super barbarians, so that way you can funnel effectively. And then the RC again, don't even bother trying to keep her alive unless absolutely necessary. But just all the spells are for the warden. I think it brings. I have 4 rage spells, with the one in my CC. I have a couple invis spells. I have a few free spells, like just keeping the warden alive. And then really the back end troops can be whatever you want it to be. Like I have back end Lalo
Yeah, I was
in
gonna
order to clean
ask.
stuff up, but you could bring, whatever and adjust the spell complement to support that troop complement if something else worked better for you. But the beauty of it is a lot of players are really defending against ground, and they're placing a lot of their high level defenses more towards the core so that the fireball can't reach them. Well, with a
Oh,
warden charge, you can literally let the warden go for 2 minutes while supporting on opposite sides with different heroes, and then release the fireball after 2 minutes into the attack. That's how
yeah.
powerful it is. In fact, in my opinion, they're probably going to have to nerf the warden because he's only going to get more strong over time. And I think I know how they're going to nerf him.
Oh.
So I think right now, if the warden is on ground, he's not affected by walls. And that they
Oh.
made that change whenever they put that in effect whenever he was introduced at Town Hall 11. And it's always been that way. But maybe at Town Hall 17, if the warden is on ground, then maybe he is affected by walls. So it would still be powerful, but
Yeah.
you would have to use super wall breakers to get the warden into where you needed to go.
And when Tip's talking about this, right? Like getting the fireball in, um, like from what I've seen in your attack, you're talking like you're still going in like 3 levels in
Right. Yep.
on the raged warden. Like it is not just like you are going to an outside or a second ring. You're like plowing in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
And
were going to describe the attack like using like a clock, like a 12, a 3, or yeah, I like the baseball one, but not
uh-huh.
everybody plays baseball. Like, how would you just like imaginarily, because I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, so then if your goal is to keep the warden, are you bringing in the troops next to the warden?
So the warden, so this is just an imaginary base. Let's bring the warden in at 6 o'clock or home plate, and you're just going to let the warden go for a little while because typically on the outside there's not a lot that could damage the warden. I mean, you kind of got to keep an eye on them, but in the very beginning, especially if you're in Legend League, for those first 30 seconds, you're really looking for a place to put your flame flinger
Get
because
that flinger down.
the because the siege barracks is super powerful, but if you can put the flame flinger in a solid spot, then that flame flinger can do a ton of damage and also help speed things up. And one of the beauties of this attack is if I put my warden down at like 5 or 6 o'clock and I can get an expo to lock onto my warden, well, then I can put my flame flinger just north of the warden, and then the flame flinger can just clear everything all the way up. If
Yeah.
there are mortars, well, then you can use the super barbarians to distract the mortar so that way your flame flinger can take the mortar down. And then once you have the warden at 6 o'clock, your flame flinger at maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock. Well, then at 9 o'clock, at 9 o'clock or at 12 o'clock, you're gonna bring in your king and your queen. And then at 9 or at 12 o'clock on the opposite side, you're gonna bring in your RC. And then they're just going to kind of collapse in towards the center. Again, once you release your heroes, you kind of got to keep an eye on them, but
Yeah.
the whole attack will scuttle if the warden does not stay alive. And I've had that happen multiple times to the point where I just have to really focus spells, invis spells, like rage spells. All of that has to be focused on the warden.
I saw you say something in chat, but have you thought about the recall?
So the recall was interesting from the perspective that Tyler did a queen charge in addition to the warden charge and pop the queen ability, and then the possibility of using the giant arrow, for example, which can speed up the attack even more because the giant arrow will take out, I mean, lots of low level defenses. Like it will already take out like archer towers and air defenses on its own, mortars. So you could pop the queen ability, have the healer puppet on her, let her get, a bunch of damage, and then recall her, and then re-release her in another section of the base with the king, so that the king kind of, shields her from any damage. And then of course you have that ice golem as well. I mean, that's kind of a variant on it that I haven't gone into a lot, but I think
Mm.
definitely on the right base it might work.
That gives me an idea to like practice with my queen charge too, because I keep the recall that I could even, practice a queen walk and recall her if I need to, so it'd be safe to practice. But it just that whole attack just kind of upends, to be honest. Like,
So I would say it's one of the hardest attacks that I've ever done, just
yeah,
because there's so much going on and there's so much you have to watch. So, like in my Super Witch attacks, basically it's the same every single time. So you're doing a warden walk, you're fireballing into a high value section of the base, and then you're pulling the warden with your queen and your super witches, and then you're walking through the center. Well, with this, like every single attack is different. I mean, the setup is the same, but okay, my warden is released here, and then I will typically I do it by timers in order to not run out of time. So I will release my warden and the flame flinger, of course, in the first 3 minutes. And then by the 2 minute mark is when I need to get my king and my queen, and preferably my RC down. And then by the 1 minute mark, if I don't see that my heroes are just cleaning everything up, by the 1 minute mark is when I need to have my Lalo down. Otherwise, I'm probably going to time fail if that's the case. So I typically do the 3-2-1 method as far
that's
as when to release the specific aspects of the attack in particulars.
and that 2 minute mark is that where it ramps up in the turn down for what?
Yeah. So the
And
two
then
minute
there's
mark is where there's a lot going on.
yeah, so
I
that
mean, you
I
have the
use that
warden.
2 minute mark all the time. But that later part, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And then at 1 minute, whatever troop comp you're using, like I use back in Lalo, that's when you would release, whatever it is to clean up. I mean, if that's root riders, maybe might work. You'd have to have some damage behind those root riders, since your king and your queen aren't necessarily behind them. Or you could, jigger it to where you have root riders and your king and your queen released kind of at the same time. But then you have to rethink it, because
Yeah,
you're not going to have the warden's tome ability to keep those alive.
that's
So I mean, it's just a different way. It's a different way of thinking about attacking.
well, and I'm starting to slide into uh, the place where I'm getting more equipment.
Mm,
Like that's still a barrier. So I'm kind of at this barrier. Um, and this what makes me excited. And the whole attack, to be honest, kind of makes me rethink my whole attack in a lot of different ways. Like, can I get more out of this? Wow, that those heroes can do a lot by themselves, right? Like, where
mm-hmm.
can I test this and in that? And just because it to me, I mean, I'm not like saying like this is like the craziest attack I've ever seen or anything, but to me this week, seeing that stuff just makes me realize I can push in a lot of different ways.
Your heroes are more powerful, and this is something that I am still realizing. And we've always known this. Like, the heroes have gotten more and more powerful over time, even before equipment was introduced at Town Hall 16. Like, heroes, learning how to utilize your heroes in the most powerful way was what separated the pros from the casuals.
Yeah.
Well, now with hero equipment, like it's essentially you're attacking with your heroes, and your army just supports your heroes. And thinking of it in that way helps cross that line, that barrier
Ah,
of. So for instance, whenever we were at Town Hall 9 and Town Hall 10 back in the day,
writing this down.
we the only thing that we really used the heroes for was to go after the queen, because we didn't
Yeah.
want the queen to shoot down all our loons or to kill all our hogs. And so we would send the heroes in, and even if your king was down, you could just replace him with a P.E.K.K.A. Like we always called the king the big P.E.K.K.A, because he wasn't really more powerful than a P.E.K.K.A. And
Right.
I don't know how
He's a real
powerful your
asshole.
P.E.K.K.A is, but my P.E.K.K.A is I don't know if I want to say he's a big guy or a little guy, but
there's a there's a P.E.K.K.A party.
get everybody get their P.E.K.K.As out.
Get your P.E.K.K.As out. Put your P.E.K.K.As in
But
your pants.
that was the only purpose for the heroes. But now, thinking of it differently, the army is not the all powerful thing at Town Hall 16, and I'm assuming going into Town Hall 17, like it's the heroes and learning
Yeah,
how to use them in the most powerful way.
that's what it made me realize. That's what made me like see was it just made me see that whole other side of it. Um, that's a really good way to put it. Because like it makes me wonder then, right? Like with my entry and my funnel, am I just with the army that I'm using in the funnel? Am I just sending my king and queen on top of things that are already getting killed? Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, am I double hitting a lot of buildings where I could be using those heroes, maybe even on the funnel to get in, or doing a version of that, but or like half of the base in like that, and merging the heroes um, earlier. So just kind of like I said, like upended the way I thought about it.
And one of the most important parts of this attack is each of your heroes are powerful on their own. And that honestly, that was really hard to overcome for me because I'm so used
That's
to
what
the
makes me want to
warden
practice it. Yeah,
joining up with either the crux of your army or joining up with the king and the queen, that one of the most powerful aspects to this specific attack is keeping your heroes separate. So for
that's what's
example,
wild.
like you brought up how it's okay to let your heroes die. You almost, in fact, you do. You want your heroes to die before they pull the warden, because the
Oh,
moment that your queen, for example, pulls the warden, well, the warden attaches itself himself to her AI, which means if you have not gotten the town hall in the center, and if the queen can't reach the town hall, then that means once the warden locks onto the queen, well, he's going to start targeting whatever she's targeting, and you're going to walk right around the town hall. So, super important to keep them separate as much as possible, and realizing how powerful they are on their own. Like it's mind blowing for sure.
yeah, and I'm gonna practice that. Even yeah, just everything that you're saying is giving me ideas. Like even just to try it out. Like I didn't even think about the fact that, and it goes against everything
It
that's inside of
does.
me. Like that's a lot of years of like, oh, we gotta
Yeah.
keep them
Well,
alive. And
I mean, like your attack. So, your attack, which is super powerful, by the way, the whole goal is to funnel and then join everything together and do this major push towards the center, whether that's using super
whoa,
bowlers or root riders, and basically you combine forces. Well,
yeah,
this is literally the exact opposite
I
way of thinking how
know,
to
I
attack,
know.
is you keep forces separate. I mean, even
Oh
when
my
you bring
god.
in your Lalo at the 1 minute mark, you don't want your loons to attract the warden, because you want your warden sitting there pounding on whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I've even made that mistake where I bring in my Lalo too close to the warden. And the warden, we did the whole video months ago about the warden pool and how many loon. I think it's five. We ended up, it was a 5 loons, 4 loons that we needed in order to pull the warden. So I got to make sure that I only do 3 loons if I'm going to be close to the warden, and then put the bulk of my loons away from the warden. That way he's not attracted to them and starts targeting what they're targeting. You want him to kind of stay on his own targeted path.
Yeah. Well, wow. Uh, So I mean I guess like to everybody out there, like no matter what your attack is right now, um I think it's worth like testing your heroes, like
Mm-hmm.
pushing your heroes, because every time like I see like that I'm talking with Tip and he shows me something, or it's something like this, it it starts to just give me more, I guess. It just
More
makes me
ideas.
yeah, more ideas for everything. So you can, maybe it's just like I said, like maybe if you're like me, maybe you're hitting, and I'm not sure if I'm doing this or not, but probably, um, double hitting things. And it's like in
The
this slump.
overkill.
Yeah, the overkill. And I'm kind of been, and so that kind of upended me. And I was trying things, but then I kind of hit a little slump with my war attacks. And it was just like the kind of over the rote, like doing it over and over, just kind, I think maybe caught up with me this week. And so now I'm like, so then I was experimenting, but I wasn't paying attention to the right things. And then I'm like, go back to the basics, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, and, yeah, so I want to practice, or at least, work on versions of something, because, again, like the limiting thing for me is the equipment, but I'm catching up pretty quickly.
You know what may work for you, and I know we were talking to Chewy about this in clan chat, but it's good to have one ground attack that you're used
Yeah,
to, which you're really
I was
good
gonna
at,
ask
and
for
one
that.
air attack. So if you're not as practiced with Lalo, then something that may work for you is doing a Warden on ground charge with, I mean, very similar to how I've been doing it recently. Warden on ground, king and queen into a specific section, RC with a spear in another section, and then bring in dragons on the other, or even Hydra. So dragons combined with mechanical why is my brain not working right
Electro
now?
dragons.
Not electro dragons.
Oh, the guy,
Crap, why can't I think of it? The
the
skeleton riding
the one,
dragons. What in the
Dragon
world?
Rider, Dragon
Dragon
Rider.
Rider. Holy cow. Wow, that's
Uh,
embarrassing. So like bringing in
oh,
Hydra, which is
I've been
which is
doing shit
dragons
like
and
that.
dragon riders, and to take care of that, that fourth section of the base, like that may be the attack that
Yeah,
Scotty827 can use. And then what'll happen
that's what
is
I
you'll
need.
look at bases. And so I kind of do this now. So I always have a Sarch blimp and a Blizzard blimp like in my back pocket, because those two attacks honestly are pretty well defended against by most base builders. Like they're not going to give up really good Blizzard value. And now like they're in some cases, but they're not going to give up really good Sarch value either. But I keep those in my back pocket. And what I do is I look at the base and I'm like, huh, like a Blizzard blimp would be perfect there. And so I do the blimp, and then I'm able to follow up with Lalo or whatever it may be. And what will happen with you is as you're doing this new attack, you're getting better at it. Maybe you're using Hydra dragons as your, fourth component to this attack. And then you're going to look at the base and you're going to be like, wait a second, this would be perfect for my super bowlers. So you switch
Yeah,
back to the army that you've learned and practiced with for months and months and months. And it's just another tool in your tool belt to use in your attacks.
that gives me an idea, because so I've been, and I said this in chat too. And on the podcast, I need an air, and I had worked, my troops up. The problem I always get is two things makes me nervous, is when I switch up everything completely. So like if I can do a variation on it, right? Like can,
Mm-hmm.
like what you're saying, keep my warden kind of doing what he was doing, and maybe even working, what like part like your attack or whatever. Um so then I'm kind of practicing different things, but I have something that's the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going like airborne and like learning like all that. So I'm not like, because I messed up this week and I left the Phoenix on my king during a war attack, and switching equipment and all that stuff.
And that's okay. So typically, the pets that I'm using is in order to ensure that the warden stays alive. I'm putting the unicorn on the warden. I have the
Ooh,
phoenix on the king, of course, the spirit fox on the RC, and then I have Frosty on my queen. And that works
ooh,
really well for distraction because those, little frost mites pop out ahead of her, pop out ahead of the king. They slow down the defenses as the king and the queen are hitting their
I'm gonna
targets.
try that.
So rejiggering all of the pets as well might be useful in and
Yeah.
something to think about. And honestly, I really think that you would be good at this, especially because, like you said, like it's adjacent to the attack that you're using. I
Yeah.
mean, even though you're
That's a good way
bringing
to say
in
it.
air,
Jason.
like your warden will still be on ground, so that way the healers will heal him,
Yeah.
and you're looking for a good spot to bring in your king and your queen. I mean, you're funneling, like you already understand the concept of funneling. Like and with as
Yeah, I'm
quickly as you
gonna
picked up your attack, I think you could pick up this attack in just a few weeks as well.
yeah. And it would be one that like, yeah, I could train. It's like I don't have to switch between equipment, during the day, when I'm going between attacks
Hmm.
and then like I really only have about two things right now for each hero that are well maxed or were maxed because um and I will have the Frosty will be done next
Hmm.
week. This week she'll be done. He will be done. Um but it's my sweet 16 today.
Somebody went to Town Hall 16
Sneakily
in the night.
in the night, the late evening, I should say.
The lady of the evening. What was
The
that?
late the lady of the evening, Town Hall 16.
Come look at this, baby.
Yeah.
Super cheap.
So, where's my pony?
You are now in the red light district.
Yeah, show me a good time.
With all the red, because that's the theme of Town Hall 16. All the
Yeah,
red everywhere.
Lady
Yeah,
of the Night.
lady of.
The Lady of the Night theme. Um, okay, so here was here's my reasoning. It's been coming,
Hmm.
but with this event stuff, mashup event, October 2024. Uh, I have extra books. I still have stuff left, right? Like,
Right.
um, and then I have an extra book. I had an extra book in the rewards, and then we've got clan games, and there's a book coming, and I have spell books. And the only thing I could use spell books on really were like 8-day upgrades.
Mm.
My buildings, my longest building ones were, I looked at it, it was like an 8-day one,
Hmm.
and the Town Hall 16, they were 12-day.
Right. So it
And
saves you an extra 4 days.
yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, tips, advice on that. I mean, when I think about it, and just even, some of the changes, thinking about it the way that you've made me think about it, uh, that's going to save me like, I don't know, 16, 20 days.
A ton of
Uh,
time.
if
Yeah.
I go up, and so I was like, I've been working really hard just to try to catch everything up. And
Hmm.
so I said, well, I was talking with Awesome Pie Guy last weekend on Discord, and I was surprised at all of the things I don't get when I go to Tunnel 16. I thought, I'm going to have my books for my army camps. I'm going to have all these things, all my plans. And sitting there talking with him, I realized I wasn't getting army camps. Oh, I
Hmm.
don't get more CC space. I mean, besides for that one thing.
Yeah, you get an extra siege machine slot, but that's kind of worthless, to be honest with you.
And I'm like, well, really? It's just like a 15.5,
Yeah, true.
going up. And so I thought it's not worth losing that time. Even though I'd finally like to just finish something,
Hmm.
that I start, uh, like a town hall. Um, so I went up. Now, I think you'll be proud of me. First of all, I held on all week. Even every day I kept thinking, I might do it.
Hmm.
I might do it. And I didn't want to do anything stupid. So on Friday night, I was in chat and I said, I think I'm going to do it. And then I said, no, I'm just going to wait till for tip so I don't do anything stupid. Uh, and then I waited and I thought, well, I'll wait till the morning. But I had some builders and I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. But I had some upgrade timers that prevented me from doing anything too stupid.
And don't forget, you had somebody sitting right beside you while you're doing
Yeah.
this.
And Maximus is
Oh no,
beside
Jack. Jack was sitting right beside you.
Jack.
Jack Daniels.
Oh God. Oh, thank God he wasn't. Oh, it could have been a disaster. I only had one little disaster, minor little thing. So now let me tell you where I'm at, and then you can tell me what to do next.
You're so funny.
Okay. So town hall went up. Then I did, and so I'm using my books, and I'll be getting an elixir thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I
A,
did my
a,
research lab.
a rune of elixir.
Yep, and I have all last month's hammers
Mm-hmm.
or like CWL metals. So I did my research lab. I
Mm-hmm.
upgraded that and hammered it. I upgraded my head house and hammered it. Or not hammered it, booked it. Those are
Mm-hmm.
books. And then I just started my equipment factory, equipment forge, or the
Okay. Uh-huh.
blacksmith, is what
Right.
they call it. I like the
Perfect.
um now my research is ready to go. It just finished up, so I didn't make any. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do anything stupid with that. Okay. Now, what I have are a book, the ability to buy, let me see here, mashup event. I can buy a book of building or a book of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I believe I will have two books of fighting because I have one right now and I'm getting one from Clan Games. So two books of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the ability for three hammers of building or fighting.
Okay.
You know, so what would you recommend that Scotty? Have I done everything correct so far?
You have, yeah, no, 100%. So the first
The
thing
equipment
that you need to
factory
do
was
is
hard.
upgrade the troops that you use in war.
Okay.
So I that would be healers. Like I would take them up to the next level,
That was, I think healers is like my number one, my book one.
right?
Okay.
And then a root riders to level 3, and then your super bowlers to level 8.
Do you think I should do bowlers before roots?
You should have enough to cover
All
both,
three,
but I mean, honestly, it's 6 one way, half dozen the other, to be honest with you. But I would
okay.
definitely do those 3 first because
Yep.
that is your attack. And
Yep.
then something that a lot of people don't and you may not need this since you're using root riders, but a troop that I like to recommend upgrading very early in a new town hall process. It seems a little strange, but the wall breaker.
Oh my
And
God.
the reason for that is because as we upgrade the wall breaker, the super wall breaker at the same time gets
Yeah.
upgraded. And so I use the super wall breaker all the time. And if you have the lower level wall breaker and you have max walls, that lower level wall breaker will not break the max wall. Like it'll
Okay.
leave just a sliver of health on that wall. And so one of the top things that I like to upgrade whenever I reach a new town hall is the wall breaker. Um, After I upgrade, the crux of my attack, which for you is healers and root riders and super bowlers. But I don't even know if you use super wall breakers a lot. Do you?
No, but that was because my wall breakers were really behind, and I didn't
Mm,
realize that I've been donating level 8 wall breakers to the clan
mm-hmm.
forever. Sorry everybody. But they're in range now. There's only one away um from that. And now with the air attacks, it's like, well, now I'm one level below, but I would still practice with the air.
And then as a strategic rusher, I always recommend upgrading goblins so that way we could have super goblins. But you're not doing super goblin raids, like you're doing actual war attacks in your raid. So that's probably
Yeah.
worthless from that perspective. And then spells, like spells
Yep.
are always super important. And if you can max out your spells, I mean, the only bad thing about maxing out spells early on is Supercell's notorious and infamous about giving us books of spells
Yeah.
every single month, like 2 or 3 sometimes. So it's kind of like, well, this is I just wasted all of that time that I could have saved. But like the jump spell, the heal spell, the rage spell, freeze, invis, like those are the most important wants to
Well,
max out as well.
and what I'll do is just wait for those books because I should be able to get through, a bunch of the troops. And then I just do like the lower upgrades, anything
Hmm.
that's like short, and then wait for a book to get everything leveled up. And I was getting pretty close to maxing everything out beforehand too, I guess. But so like the spells, right? I only have one, two, three spells I use, and I've got two
Okay,
spell books.
and I'm not sure what's max before you reach town. I think the rage spell, for example, is already
Yeah,
max anyway.
yeah. There's just that was the other thing I'm looking at with the Town Hall 16, like going to Town Hall 16. I'm like, well, there's not another level on every troop either.
Right,
So it, so I was like, it really kind of seems like I can go to 16 without really like it's like a point 0.5. It kind of just felt like,
right. Yeah, that's an old concept. I love it. 9.5.
yeah, I was thinking about that like 11.5. I'm a 10.5.
Yeah,
I was
I
trying to
love it.
I had to figure out how we phrased it last night. But like yeah,
Yes,
like the warden, the what's it called? The mini warden, apprentice warden.
Warden's Apprentice.
Yeah, he's already maxed out.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And are
And
you using a Warden's Apprentice with your
I
Super Bowlers?
I was experimenting this week.
I mean, it
Um
helps. Like it it does, it adds health, right? So the potential is there, and you just have to figure out
yeah.
if you think the potential works for you or not. So whenever I do Super Bowler attacks, like on my Town Hall 15, I'm still doing a lot of Super Bowler attacks. My On my Town Hall 14 as well, I will typically always bring a Warden's Apprentice with my Super Bowlers just because it gives them,
The
that much
boost.
extra health, that boost, so that way they can stay alive a little longer. So that way they can take down those defenses. If they had died, they wouldn't have taken down those defenses. So you just
Yeah.
have to determine if it works for you.
So I was experimenting with taking out my druids. So I usually take three riders and throw two druids behind them,
Hmm.
the cocaine bears. Uh, and now, uh, help me remember, right? It was they got nerfed the druids once, and then they got nerfed again, right?
Yes. So
Okay,
the first nerf was it took them from healing 4 units to only healing 3 units.
okay, yeah,
And then the second nerf was they just hit everything by 50%, healing by
okay,
50%, the HP of the cocaine bear by 50%. Like they just massively nerfed it the second time.
yeah. So that's what I thought, and but I had said it a couple times in chat or wherever, and I couldn't. I wasn't sure. I like it made me question it. Like that was true,
Hmm.
right? Because
The
people just said
Mandela effect.
nerfed. Yeah, yeah, right. Like that was nerfed a while.
Wait, were they
Oh,
nerfed that first time?
and I think I started feeling the nerf this week. Like
Hmm.
at first, nothing was really changing, and it might have been like the luck of the base. So that's where I was like playing with, like, okay, if I take out those two druids, or after seeing like your attack, I was thinking, well, maybe I could just even repurpose the druids to a different part of the base, like on the funnel, and then have them come out and tank for X, Y, or Z, um and uh whatnot. I
Well,
forgot.
if you think of the druids, like the purpose of the druids is to keep your troops alive a little bit longer, right? Well, if you took out the two druids, and this is totally up to you, but if you took out the two druids and you replaced it with one warden's apprentice, like if you think about it, the goal is the same because the
Yeah,
goal of the warden's apprentice is to keep your troops alive a little longer, which is the same point as the druids. I mean, they
yeah,
do it in different ways. Like the druids heal while the Warden's Apprentice increases health, but it kind of does the same thing. Now, the only bad thing or negative thing is that you don't get the cocaine bear, but
yeah,
with the 50% nerf, like the cocaine bears are literally 50% less useful.
yeah.
So I'm playing around with that. You might see a little or more success,
Well,
if you decided to bring the Warden's Apprentice.
well, and that's where like the upended attack made me think. I'm like, okay, what I'm hoping for out of those cocaine bears going in like that is that I'm going to get healed root riders, or and I'm not really counting on them to do the work. I'm counting on the Super Bowlers,
Right.
to tank, and then I'm
Right.
counting on the druids to turn into the cocaine bears, and then just take heat longer. And
Mhm.
then so I see your attack, and then I think, well, am I do I need that HP with the nerf? Am I getting the HP um that I need for it to absorb, right?
Mhm. Right.
In the first place, and am I double hitting? And so I was putting in two of them, but now you make me think maybe I could just put in one apprentice warden. And it wasn't quite working. I mean, it was working, but I wasn't seeing like a benefit. But if I only put in one, um I'd have more room to take other things.
Right. Yeah, clean up
And
troops or more super minions in order to clean stuff up. Yeah, I mean,
because those time fails is what's been hitting me too, and maybe even just on the one, or like I was trying the cocaine bears on a Yeti to walk up one side behind my flame flinger and stuff. So it's like, yeah, where could I put it a little bit different? Maybe get more like with my flinger, I can just take out a ton if I can get it in the right spot.
mhm.
But what could I have going with that to like make sure all the cleanup stuff is going that's going to last? That makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And which is one reason why I love this game, and the fact that it changes, which is also the reason why it was time for a change. Like Root Riders were just ruling the meta, and it was good that they nerfed Root Riders multiple times. Like it was good that they nerfed Druids because it the newness of it, like having to switch to different strategies, although it can be frustrating, for a player that's really used to doing one specific type of attack. Like to me, that's what keeps me in the game because
Yeah.
I was doing I forget what I was doing before Super Witches, but I think I was doing Root Riders. Like I was doing mass Root Riders, and then I switched over to Super Witches, and
Yep.
then I was actually doing Super Witches with Druids and seeing a lot of success. And then they nerfed the Druids, and I stayed with Super Witches for a while, but it kind of was working, kind of wasn't. And then I had this new attack, and it took me a week. Like I had a week literally of tons of 1 stars because I couldn't figure out like the order of release, and
Yeah.
do I need to, like, how do I get the town hall if it's centrally located? And like it took me a good week of just fail, 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 like
Yeah.
nonstop. And I'm still not perfect at it. Like I still hit a lot of bases, and I got a 1 star this morning just because I didn't release my
Son of
troops
a.
right and stuff like that. But it takes time. But learning the new skill and the new strategy is the reason why I keep coming back to this game.
So let me ask you this then. At what point do you say, I feel comfortable enough to bring this out for war?
I think I think when I'm 3 starring with it on a more regular basis than I am with my other attack. So
Okay.
while I was doing this new Warden Charge attack with Back and Lalo, I was doing that attack in Legend League. And then when we came to war, I was still using Fireball Super Witches for a good week or two, just because that was the attack that I
Yeah.
had been most familiar with and I was seeing the most success with. And then once that threshold was crossed, where I'm seeing myself 3 star, on a Legend Link day, 6 out of 8 times or something like that. Well, then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, this attack is stronger than my Super Witch attack. And so therefore I'm going to start using it in war because I'm seeing more success with it overall. But I had to stick with it.
Yeah.
Like I saw that it was powerful, and man, it sucked. Like literally, it sucked for a week. It was awful. But then once I kind of picked up, the way to do it and how to look at the bases a little bit differently, like then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the attack. Like for me, especially, this is the attack that I need to use.
That's cool. Yeah, because I get a little nervous because like I've been experimenting and trying different things, and then I get our wars are close,
Mm-hmm.
but we have been killing it. Uh,
Recently, yeah.
yeah, just really that 2% a month. You just kind of see 2-3%. The last couple of months been doing like
Mm-hmm.
perfect wars and stuff. Um, I just always uh, I get a little nervous those days because I'm practicing and then I'm thinking in the wild, is this, am I just not getting the CC troops that are going to be in here, and then do you risk it? But I don't know. It inspires me to keep checking things out and just a different way of looking at.
Keep trying new stuff, new
Yeah, because once you,
strats.
it's like you
Yep.
just need to know what's possible, right? Like, like this is a crazy fact. Um, Now, well, I hope this is a fact. I'm 99% sure. Uh, so the first time somebody ran a 4 minute mile, right? Broke the 4 minute mile. It was a major achievement
hmm
in human history. It's like people thought you can't run a 4 minute mile. You can't run a 4 minute mile.
Right.
And finally, one guy breaks the 4 minute mile. And guess what happens the next year?
Yep. Like 19 people broke the 4 minute mile the next year, something like
Yeah.
that. Something ridiculous.
Yeah. So and it's like that with really, like with everything, right? It's like once you just know it's possible or you can like see that in a different way, that just kind of opens up different possibilities. Um and
And I
like
like
sorry.
I like how I watch pros attack. And for me, what's difficult is I don't see the connection to the casual player. Like I would consider all of us casual players. Like we have some pretty
Yeah.
darn good casual players in House of L. Like some real, and shout out to All Hell. Like he's setting
Oh
records in Legend
yeah.
League. They're doing an
Holy
amazing job.
Nikes.
Like we have some really good attackers
I'm gonna
in
check
House
out
of
where's
L,
that.
but I'll watch the pros attack and they're doing these like crazy five invis spells with the fireball and half Lalo and half hybrid attacks. And I'm like, I don't see the connection. Like I don't understand how me as a casual player can make that work. But then when you see just an incrementally better attack or something that, oh, okay, I get that. And you can get that from watching like regular YouTubers or whatever that are not necessarily pro accounts. That's when it relates to me. When I'm not doing these super fancy attacks where I just can't understand or see how they're seeing it. But then when I see a new attack, I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I understand how that relates. And I think that's kind of where you're coming from as well.
Yeah, oh, seeing your attack, you don't, your army doesn't need to be like the main force.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much you could take out, like that's just wild. So it just, yeah, opens possibilities. Or like when someone said, oh, this person 3-starred this base in under a minute,
Yeah.
knowing that it's even possible to then you can go, okay, if somebody else can do that, then I should be able to crack this, at least, get closer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it kind of just sets a bar of what's possible. I was just trying to check on um where awesome is right now. Oh, hell, I mean, he's currently number 50 in the US, battling the leaderboards. He was
Yep.
number
He got up
5.
he got up to number 6, or was it 5?
I saw him 5 yesterday.
Yep. That's
It
crazy.
is the end of Legends League, and you were in that trophy range, weren't you?
Last month I did okay. I was top 500 in the US, but I
That
definitely not as
must
high as All Hell is right now.
that must only be like 100 trophies
Oh yeah,
difference.
there are just a few trophies difference between like rank 500 and rank 5, for example. Like it's a needle's edge in comparison. But
Yeah, that's crazy to see him. I just said I know him.
I know him too. He actually lives about 2 hours away from me.
That's awesome. uh Itsu, I think that's his name. Is that his name? Itsu?
Oh, it's yeah.
GCBC shared Town Hall 17 video from him. Uh, just anything that I know a little bit more about. I only got to watch the first part of it. There won't be any hero level or the equipment level increases.
Mm-hmm. Which is
Uh,
good.
yeah, which is uh, good. And what was the other thing that he said that I'm
Do
just
you have any predictions on possible nerfs to current equipment, do you think?
um
Like, are you seeing any pieces of equipment that are just overpowering in your opinion?
I,
Do you think may
you know
like for
the
instance, I think the warden will probably see a nerf in the form of if he's on ground, he will be hindered by walls. I think with as powerful as the warden is, and with an attack like this just gaining more popularity, they're gonna have to nerf him in some way. And to me, that's a logical step. Like make him if he's on ground, he can't just go over walls.
well that would that might fit in with the lava loon if you think about if the lava loon could only stay attached. Right.
Interesting.
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know for some reason that just that
popped into your
pops.
head.
Yeah. The only one that I could think of maybe would be the fireball,
Right.
but the thing with the fireball maybe, and as you're saying this is kind of was what is occurring to me is it still takes a lot of skill. Like it's not one that's just overpowered, I don't
Right.
think, by just being overpowered. Like you have to use it precisely to get it to where you want to go. Um,
And I have two thoughts on that. So number one is this attack doesn't necessarily need the fireball. In fact, I have come like the fire. I agree. Like I think if any of the pieces are going to be nerfed, like the fireball is a prime target. But there have been times in my attacks when there is only like I'm almost done with the attack. There are 30 seconds left. I'm like, oh shit! Like I
you
haven't
got
used my fireball
fireball.
yet. Like I got to find I fireball right at the end. So that has happened. And then number two, even and this is something to consider. Like if they nerf the fireball, and I have two thoughts. If they nerf the fireball, it actually may be worth having the lava loon as the warden's piece of equipment because you can still do the warden charge. And then if you have back end Lalo, and if you can take out three
Oh,
of the air defenses and then release those two lava loons to go towards the fourth air defense, and then release your loons around that, similar to how you would do with it's just a regular lava hound. Like the
yeah,
damage that they can do on the way to the air defense may actually work in that instance. And it will also clear that area of any air traps or anything like that. And then, secondly, I'm curious what you think of this, but the lava loon will be really useful with search blimps. And I know that we haven't really talked a lot about supercharger blimps, but whenever you have the warden and you have to tome in your blimp into a certain part of the base. Like right now, of course, you have to have the eternal tome. But the second piece of equipment that might work really well with it is the lava loon, because if the lava loons are angled and positioned right, then those lava loons will stay out ahead of the blimp, which will only protect it. And then they do 200 damage per second. So 400 damage per second uh, together with two of them, plus the exploding damage. Like I really think the lava loon might get to the point to where we think about the game differently. Like
yeah.
how we're looking at this attack. I think that there may be ways to incorporate the lava loon in a way where you could really have an OP attack using that specific piece of equipment.
So if I drop the warden, let's say I do a warden walk with the lava loon,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to get pulled right to the air defense, right?
It will, and I'm thinking the troop space of the lava loons that might be an issue too because I'm assuming that the moment that you release the lava loons, the warden will go to the target that the lava loons are heading towards. So that
So,
might be an issue, something to consider as well.
so like, so if I did a warden walk, let's say, and then Ooh.
I love it. Light bulb just went off
Uh,
over Scotty's head.
just well, okay. So think about your attack, right? That you were um doing. Let's say you had that one warden push, but you wanted to just get him in a little bit deeper and then rage him. So
Mm-hmm.
he would be. So if you could get him, let's say there's an air defense in there, you could get him pulled in through all the trash on the outside to target that thing, and maybe put some, like cleanup stuff behind him. But so you could bring him in to the base to where you want him a little bit further, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes.
Yeah, yeah, no,
See
that
what I'm saying?
does. I think there are possibilities for sure.
Do you think?
Yeah,
Do you think they're going to add the lava loon permanently?
I think yeah, as a piece of equipment, I think it's a permanent piece, right?
But do you think as a troop
Oh no, I don't think as a troop it'll be added permanently.
you
I
don't?
think it'll just be a seasonal troop. Like they may bring it out again next year, but also Royal Ghosts. Like I don't know if you've had a chance to play with Royal Ghosts.
Just in the in Royale.
So the Royal Ghosts are really fun to play with as well, and are typically the seasonal troop that they bring out, at this time of the year. But it's been a little while since we've had Royal Ghosts that I can remember. But those are a lot of fun to play with as well.
I just wonder though if so the puppet, because there's no other troop, and I was talking to Pie guy about this too. Um, there's no other every other troop, every other piece of equipment, the troop or anything else is already part of the game.
Oh right, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
And so for me, it almost feels like some of these event troops. I wonder, I wonder if the lava loon doesn't become more of a permanent.
It
But
might, yeah. I mean, you could be right on that. I never thought about
uh,
that.
I don't know. I'm wrong usually when it comes to air, especially. We should probably do some of these questions quick,
Okay.
so you can get to your soccer game. What were the ones from GCBC? He said, "Oh, Tip's thoughts on the AOE game, Age of Empires, has
Yeah.
been
So,
released."
do you have thoughts on it? Because I know you've tinkered with it a little bit too.
Um, I I did a little bit of the tutorial, and then I went to fill CCs,
Yeah.
and I haven't been back. Um,
That's
and,
probably the best description I've ever heard. That was great. I love
so,
it.
and I thought I'll kind of wait to see what Tip thinks about it, and so
Uh,
I'm curious.
I had very, very high hopes for Age of Empires. Did you play Age of Empires back when we were in high school, like back in the late 90s
I don't
at all?
think so. I thought I did, but it kind of seems like I'm thinking of something else, like a different game. I don't know if I have.
So it was very similar to like Warcraft 2, StarCraft, Command and Conquer, like that style of real time strategy where you have to build out your base. And at the exact same time that you're building out your base, like other players are also building out their base at the same time. And then at any point in time during that gameplay, your opponents, your enemies can choose to bring their troops over to you to attack you and to capture, your whatever that you're building, right? I was hoping that it would be that type of game, like a really solid RTS game.
Like you
And
couldn't get it back, like you lost your stuff if you get
yeah, so
attacked.
so it's not like Clash where you have a base that you build and then you log in every day and it gets better and better and better. This is just a one-time gameplay. So you build your base at one time, and every game, like I used to play Warcraft 2 a lot, and every game would be an hour and a half, like an hour to 2 hours long typically.
Oh,
And so, but you're just sitting down to play for an hour, building out your
yeah.
base,
Oh,
trying to
okay.
conquer your
Okay.
enemies. You can build more defensively, you can build more offensively, but you're making those decisions in real time. And that's kind of what I was hoping and expecting the Age of Empires mobile game to be. And I'm up to, I just went to chapter 15, and the map is beautiful. Like as it's expanding, like it looks a lot like the really expensive dragon map that Supercell built last month, what was it, $32 or something like that for the
Oh
dragon map.
yeah.
Like it's as beautiful as that. The map is just, it's gorgeous. The graphics are gorgeous, but there has not been any strategy yet. Now,
Oh
granted, I've been playing it on and off for this past week, so I think I'm up to chapter 15. And I asked Chewy because I was like, what is it? Just a world building game? Like there isn't any strategy, no attacking, like
yeah.
nothing. We're literally just building buildings because in that sense, it's no different than Heyday. You know,
Yeah. It reminded me of like the Walking Dead game where it's like you have the you kind of live by your clan and you've got armies moving across the map back and forth, or well, people go to attack other things, right? It,
there is a section in the game that I like, it hasn't come up a lot. Like they keep on bringing the focus
oh
back to building up your base, but you can go to an island to attack, and it's kind of set up like Clash Mini, kind of, where you it almost looks like a chessboard, and you can move your troops in different places on that chessboard, and then you press attack, and then the two troops, like the two armies, auto battle against each other. So I can see the
yeah,
possibility of strategy and where you place troops, where you place your heroes on that, chessboard, to where they're going to gain, do maximum damage while gaining maximum protection from another troop. Like I see the possibility, but I haven't reached that yet. And also Age of Empires has these really strange pain points to me. So in the beginning, I'm playing and okay, oh, this is cool. I upgrade this, I upgrade my university so that way I can train higher archers, and I upgrade my stone collector, like all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden there's a 3 hour upgrade, like just kind of thrown into all of that. And
oh
I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not playing anymore for 3 hours. And
oh, I could see.
so like I push the upgrade for the 3 hours and then I don't play. And then I forget about it because I'm playing Clash. And then the next day I open it up and that 3 hour upgrade is done. I'm upgrading stuff like,
So
oh,
it's
okay,
like,
this is
ooh,
cool again. And then 20 minutes later, I have a 2 hour upgrade, just kind of pops up out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not playing for 2 hours while I wait for this
okay.
one building to upgrade for 2 hours. So I go back to Clash and I forget about it for, the next day or two.
Yeah.
To me, there are really strange pain points built into it. It's almost as if they're expecting me to pay money to finish these 2 hour upgrades. But like the game hasn't proven itself. So I'm not going to spend money on a game that hasn't proven itself. And I don't understand why they're putting these pain points in when really they should get players as excited about the game as possible. So I have high hopes. And if the strategy component of it turns out to be legitimate, then maybe it will be a game that I'm excited about and recommend. But at this point, it's just a world building game to me, which it's beautiful and it's kind of cool, like it's kind of fun. But I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see what happens.
I think I will wait for your recommendation just because I have some because I have to fill war CCs. Well, and I just like I
Mm,
put on my like I mean with second accounts, and that was another one update about Britney Spears. I cannot get the email to recover the account. I mean I for some reason I can't log in, so I haven't done anything. Like you try to log in and forgot your or you got to sign up, but I'm not getting a Supercell email or something. So
if you
like
started another account, is that a possibility? What would you name it if you did?
I don't. I was kind of thinking about that. It might even just be simpler to do that, but it's a lot already.
Yep.
Like farming, and I've been doing it where I've basically had one upgrade going a day, and I'm filling this out now. Like I've hit 16 now. It's like I'm filling all this stuff in and getting ready, and kind of strategizing like how with maybe a hammer jam event or something, I'll be able to do it as quickly as possible. So
Yeah.
I want to so I can be in the other clans. And Chewy said I could use one of his account, which I hadn't thought about. Just so I could like during CWL go see what other people are doing and stuff. Um, so maybe with that. Uh, a while back, he also said Hot Topic amongst podcasts was a feature that would allow us to use our accounts at any TH level with heroes and troops adjusted. Um, it'd probably need to be for friendly wars. The only counter argument would be a disincentive to players to farm multiple accounts, but this is upside so much bigger. Thoughts? Can we get the bandwagon rolling? What are your thoughts?
So we've talked about this before, where a little bit. So I don't know. It might have been on Clash Tips where I talked about it, where there may have been like a potion that you could use. For example, if you're at Town Hall 12, or you could rush to a town hall like Town Hall 14, and if you wanted to participate in community league based tournaments, you could pop that potion, and for 24 or 48 hours, your base would be max at that town hall, so that you could participate, in Champions War League and do mixed breakdown attacks. But you could have a max base for 24 or 48 hours at whatever town hall level, you popped that potion at. But the fundamental problem with Clash of Clans is that it takes two years, at least 3 years for most, to get to that point to where you can be competitive in like esports and stuff. And so the Clash has to come up with a way to where they can incorporate the new player who's not going to play for 5 months, get up to Town Hall 11, and then burn out because they're
Yeah,
so far away from that max Town Hall, whatever it is at the time. And doing something like this to where if you have a max account, you can go back to any of the other town halls,
that's what I
and
was gonna. Yeah,
that would be fun. I don't know how they would implement it, but
that.
the fundamental problem that they have is it's not accessible to new players. Essentially, like it's
Yeah,
still a fun game, but really, I mean, as you're finding out, like it's the most exciting is NCWL with a max Town Hall 16. Proving yourself at the hardest level, and it takes years to get there. And so, is there some way for us to make it fun, either going through the upgrade process or giving a players a chance to be max quicker while still allowing Supercell the business opportunity of making as much money as they are currently? And the problem is those two goals don't necessarily align. So they have to determine, okay, is the fun component of offering something like this in game going to outweigh the revenue that we could gain by leaving it as it is? Or will the revenues pick up if we add more fun features to the game, allowing more flexibility in what town halls you can be? Like you're not static at one town hall once you go to that town hall level. Like, will the fun that's incorporated entice more players to come in, which in turn brings in more revenue? So I like it. It's almost more of a
yeah.
business decision than anything else.
I think I really like that idea. This is what. I, so maybe what I think one way to do it, and maybe it's already done, is that within the first year or 6 months, you have the ability to get your troops to the level of tournament level, right?
Mm-hmm.
That like the barrier to entry lowers on that end, and then that tournament level for higher players maybe drops, to wherever that's
Right.
it. So
Which
we,
is what they do in Clash Royale, for example.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they
like,
let everybody, I think it's like a King's Tower. I think it's called a King's Tower. Like everybody's a King's Tower 10,
mm-hmm.
and everybody competes with the King's Tower 10 card levels. Like it's an equal playing field that everybody can play at. Like
And even,
introducing something like that into Clash.
yeah, that, or that it's just capped for the upper levels, so even if you were an 8, the most you were going to go up against was a 9 or something. I mean,
Right.
however that work. um I like the idea of being able to go backwards, and I could see it as like you had a TH10 slot, a TH11, in your war maps, so that way you could post a base, a friendly challenge to a
Yes.
TH12 in your
Yes.
clan or a TH13. And then you could go in, like, based on what's needed in a war, you could go backwards, but you couldn't go ahead.
So
So
you would
then,
have these permanent slots, is what you're saying. Like there would be a separate screen where you would have a max Town Hall 11 base, a max Town Hall 12 base. Like since you've already reached Town Hall 16, you
yeah,
have all these options. And whenever you spun a friendly war or whenever you offered a friendly challenge, you can choose which base it is that you offered
yeah,
in the friendly war or in the friendly challenge.
yeah. So you could say, you know what, the pros for this worlds are gonna use Town Hall 12s. So you got to go back. You can go if you are above a Town Hall 12, you can go back to it, and you've got your map slot. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I could always post it in the chat. Like if somebody in the clan wanted to do it, so that way you'd have relevant
They could even
FCs
charge gems. Like they could charge
for a
1,500
slot.
or 2,500 gems for a slot for a Town Hall 12.
Yeah, and you
Like,
could build out your bases, and then and then the whole. I mean, imagine what it could be like if we said, you know what, we want to match um, C2J, let's say, but we want to do it as Town
mhm.
Hall nines.
Yeah.
You know,
You could even put it on, how you have your war maps, like your map editor. You
yeah,
could even include it like in that map editor, and you'd have,
that's
Town
where I
Hall
was.
12, Town Hall 13 that you could buy with gems.
Yeah, like those slots. That's where I was thinking, like
Oh,
over
exactly.
there,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like each of those slots, you'd have your whatever normal your current base, but then you'd have one slot for each archive, like your path or something.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that would solve part of the problem. Like I think the community could take that and run with it and have fun with it.
Yeah,
Uh,
you could
the,
could adapt it in so many ways.
like the only negative, like GCBC brought up, is that would be disincentive for having multiple accounts. Because if, for instance, if I can just
Yeah,
level one account up to Town Hall 16, and then I can access any of the lower town halls, well, then I'm not going to create a second, third, fourth, fifth account. But then also at the same time, I don't know how much money people are spending on their second, third, fourth, fifth accounts. Like most people spend all of their money on their first account. But then also from the other side, the other perspective is if you have a feature like this, you're going to want to reach max as quickly as possible. So that way you can have
well,
access to those lower town hall slots. So I think it would balance out in the end.
and are people using second accounts not to do like a permanent 15, but to be in multiple places and have multiple options?
True. Yeah. And
You
that's a
know,
good point as well.
because you'd like for me, I'd be like, oh, I could only do my 15, but then well, like I think some people might be keeping their town hall where it is because um they want to be able to play that town hall level, like
Hmm.
the 15,
And
which
that's very
is
true. Like I
kind of
played with
cool.
a lot of players who they're like, I don't want town hall 15 was max at the time that I was talking with them. They're like, I don't want to go to town hall 15. I have fun playing competitions at town hall 11. Like no siege town hall 11 is where it's at for me. I love playing this. I'm never going to upgrade. And there are players who are like that.
Yeah, to each
Hmm.
their own.
Yeah.
And so I think we should probably wrap up the podcast for this week so you can get to your soccer game.
And they're vying for second place. So that's
Tip
exciting.
is
If
Tip
they
is
can win,
Tip has to get dressed up and ready to go in his soccer
soccer dad.
uniform.
Yep. Cheer on
Oh,
my son.
you're not gonna get on the field too.
No. We don't want this 41-year-old body out on the soccer field for
Do
sure.
you like yell? Like, are you a
No.
like a like
No,
a
I'm
dad
pretty
in the
quiet.
stand that's
I,
like?
no, I'm
Is
pretty
there some
quiet.
asshole parents there that you like?
Some, but honestly, we haven't seen much. I saw a lot more of that in baseball. Like in
Oh,
baseball, there were a lot of rowdy parents. In soccer, there haven't been as many. Like there, you every now and again, or there'll be a team that comes from another area and their parents are a little more rowdy, but like I haven't heard much, which is good from all the soccer videos
yeah.
that you see of brawls with parents and such. We haven't experienced any of that. Like
He'll
our
be
side's
like,
pretty quiet, cheering, but that's pretty much
Tipdawg won't be here this week. He has been arrested for assault at the
it.
soccer
Black eye.
fields.
Nice.
Well, shout outs.
I want to shout out your episode last week. Like that was really interesting, fun to listen to. Love Wizard of Woo, love Carl. Super great guys. Love their podcast.
Did
Listen
you
to
hear
it
I
every
butchered
week.
his name at the
Oh,
beginning?
Master of Woo. That was so funny.
Well,
Hey, look, no, that's an even better name because he is a master.
oh my God.
Right?
I should have warned them about the intro. That's why I said like today, I'm like, because I always mess up right at the beginning, like hardcore.
Right?
So thank you to those guys.
Yeah, it was super great episode. Loved it.
It was fun. Other shout outs.
Other than all hell, like I
Yeah,
can't shout him
looking
out
at that
enough.
name
Like
right.
great job. I wish him the best because he's using I forget the hog, was it the hog witch? And he's
Oh,
very good at it, right? But he's gonna have to find a new army in December, which sucks. But he's doing like amazing with it as it is. Like it's really fun to watch his attacks.
we're pulling for you and standing next to you, so when your glory will shine on us. I am not the top player in the U.S., but I know him.
True.
Big shout out to Chewy again, Beer Zombie, Daddy-O, Osix. I'm just gonna go down Elite, Sin, who's new, of course, IR Master, Sanatu, Shane.
Shane, yep. Shout
Shane's
out to Shane.
back.
He's back, doing awesome.
All the guys, just going down the list here, Boss, Ricky's new, Ellipses, ... And everybody. It's been fun. We're gearing up for CWL. Well, by the time this podcast goes up, the list will be up. I plan to do it today. And so a big shout out to all you guys again for last month. I think we just got a really solid plan. Thanks to Tyler for bringing over all
Shout out Tyler.
the loot and anybody that's stopped by. I've taken screenshots as much as I can and never get the chance to pull them all together right before it. So I got to pull a list together. So thank you for that. Thank you to the listeners out there. And thank you, Tipdawg. It's so good to be back talking with you. It's so weird when we don't. And shout out to you again.
Shout out to you.
Get a hold of us at clashofclanspodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us at clashofclanspodcast.com or on YouTube as well. So you could subscribe there. It's just the videos of the podcast, which I kind of hope to animate one day. I think that'd be kind of cool. With AI stuff, it'd be kind of fun. So until next time, keep it clashy, everybody.
Keep it clashy.
Skilly beep 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 skilly beep.